Marcus Chun sat in his white room and counted the days. 312 years, 4 months, and 16 days since the Kethvar had destroyed Earth. He knew because he had carved a mark on the wall for every single day. The aliens had given him new walls many times, but Marcus always started counting again. The room was nice. Too nice. Soft bed, good food, books to read, and a window that showed fake Earth skies. The Kethvar wanted him comfortable. They wanted him alive. Marcus knew why, and it made him angry every day. The door opened with a soft sound. Commander Zixtal walked in. The alien looked like a tall person made of blue crystal. Light moved under its skin like water. It had no face that Marcus could understand, just a smooth surface that somehow watched him. "Good morning, Marcus," Zixtal said. Its voice came from somewhere inside its chest. After 300 years, Marcus still found it strange. "Is it morning?" Marcus asked. He did not look at the alien. "Hard to tell when you control the fake sun." Zixtal moved closer. Its crystal feet made no sound on the white floor. "You seem angry today." Marcus laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Angry? Me? Why would I be angry? You only killed my entire species and keep me like a pet." "You are not a pet," Zixtal said. "You are the most important being in the galaxy, because I am the last human. Because you are the last monster." Marcus finally looked at the alien. In all their talks, Zixtal had never used that word before. "Monster?" Zixtal sat down in the chair across from Marcus. The alien did this sometimes when it wanted to have a long talk. "Do you know why we destroyed your species, Marcus?" "Because you could." "No, because we had to." Marcus had heard this before. The Kethvar always said they had good reasons for the bad things they did. "Tell me again. I love bedtime stories." "Your people were not the strongest in the galaxy. Your ships were not the fastest. Your weapons were not the most powerful." Zixtal's voice got quieter. "But you were the most dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "We never attacked you first. You gave other species ideas." "Bad ideas." Marcus knew what Zixtal meant, but he wanted to hear the alien say it. "What kind of ideas?" "Freedom, choice, the right to say no to those who rule you." Zixtal stood up and walked to the fake window. Before humans, the galaxy was peaceful. The strong ruled the weak. Everyone knew their place. There were no wars because no one fought back. Sounds boring. It was perfect. Zixtal turned back to Marcus. "Then your species spread across the stars. Wherever humans went, they talked to other beings. They told them stories about choice and freedom and fighting for what is right. These ideas spread like a disease." Marcus smiled for the first time in weeks. "Good." The Veltari started asking why they had to work in our minds forever. The Medani wanted to choose their own leaders. The Silvani refused to give us their sacred trees. Zixtal's voice got harder. "Your species taught the galaxy to rebel. We taught them to be free. Same thing." Zixtal walked back to the chair, but did not sit. "Do you know what happened on Kepler Station?" Marcus knew. The story was famous among humans before the end came. A human diplomat named Sarah Kim saved 2 million Valtari from slavery. She started a revolution that killed thousands of my people. She started a revolution that freed millions of yours. Zixtal was quiet for a long time. Marcus could see light moving faster under the alien's crystal skin. This meant Zixtal was thinking hard or getting upset. "We tried to make deals with humans," Zixtal said finally. "We offered your leaders money, power, whole star systems. All we wanted was for humans to stop spreading their ideas. And your leaders said no. They said freedom was not something they could sell." Zixtal's voice got very quiet. "That was when we knew you had to die." Marcus felt cold, even though the room was warm. "All of us? every single human, every human colony, every human ship, every human child. Zixtal sat down hard in the chair. It took us 50 years to hunt you all down. But you kept me. I kept you. This was new. Marcus had always thought the Empire ordered him to be saved. Why? Because I wanted to understand. I wanted to know what made humans so dangerous that we had to kill an entire species. Zixtal looked at Marcus with that smooth, strange face. I have studied you for 300 years. I still do not understand. Marcus leaned forward. What do you want to understand? How can you still have hope? Your world is gone. Your people are dead. You have been my prisoner for longer than most species live. Yet every day, you wake up and make marks on the wall. Every day, you refuse to give up. Why? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because someone has to remember. Remember what? That humans existed, that we chose to be free, even when it killed us. Marcus stood up and walked to his marks on the wall. That freedom is worth dying for, but you are not free. You will never be free. Marcus smiled and touched the wall. I am free in here. He pointed to his head. And in here. He pointed to his heart. You can put me in a cage, but you cannot cage my thoughts. You cannot make me stop believing that all beings deserve to choose their own path. Zixtal was very still. That is what? I do not understand. That belief serves no purpose now. It helps nothing. It changes nothing. Does not it? Marcus turned to look at the alien. You have ruled the galaxy for 300 years since you killed the last free humans. Is your empire peaceful? Zixtal did not answer. Are the Veltari happy in your minds? Do the Merdani sing songs about your glory? Do the Silvani thank you for taking their trees? Still no answer. Marcus walked closer to Zixtal. You said human ideas spread like a disease. Did you kill the disease? Or just the first carriers? For the first time in 300 years, Zixtal stood up quickly and left the room without saying goodbye. Marcus went back to his wall and made another mark. 312 years, 4 months, and 17 days. He smiled. Tomorrow, he would ask Zixtal more questions. Questions that made the alien think. Questions that planted seeds. Even in a cage, Marcus John was still fighting for freedom. Not just his own, but freedom for every being in the galaxy who had forgotten they deserved it. The last human was about to remind them all. Dr. Yura pressed her 4 hands against the quantum crystal and felt the message flow through her mind. The crystal was small, no bigger than her thumb, but it connected her to Veltari workers on 17 different worlds. The Kethver thought the crystals were just mining tools. They did not know that Veltari could use them to share thoughts across the galaxy. The message was from her brother, Kix on the mining world of Veltar Prime. His thoughts came to her clearly. The overseers are getting worse. They made us work 30 hours straight yesterday. 3 workers died from exhaustion. The Kethver said they were weak and replaced them with new slaves from the prison ships. Yura closed her large black eyes and sent her thoughts back. Stay strong, brother. Change is coming. I can feel it. Yura worked in the Kethver Research Center on their capital world. She was one of only 12 Veltari allowed to study instead of dig in the mines. The Kethver thought she was grateful for this honor. They were wrong. Every day, Yura searched the Kethver computer files for information about the species they had enslaved. She learned about the Medani, who used to rule great ocean worlds before the Kethvar turned them into factory workers. She learned about the Silvani, who had lived peacefully in their forest worlds before the Kethvar cut down their sacred trees and made them into servants. But mostly, she learned about humans. The Kethvar had files on humans that went back 500 years. The files told a story that made Yira's blood hot with anger. Humans had been explorers and traders who traveled between the stars. They had made friends with many species. They had shared knowledge and stories and strange ideas. About freedom and choice, the files showed what happened next. How the Kethver had demanded that other species stop talking to humans. How they had threatened war against anyone who traded with Earth. How they had slowly pushed humans out of the galaxy, one star system at a time. Then came the Great Hunt. 50 years of Kethvar ships chasing down every human colony, every human ship, every human family trying to hide in the dark spaces between stars. The files had pictures that made Yira sick. Burning ships. Empty colonies. Lists of the dead that went on for thousands of pages. But the most interesting file was about the last human. Marcus Chun. The Kethver had kept detailed records of everything he said and did for 300 years. They thought he was broken and harmless. Yira thought he was the most dangerous person in the galaxy. In the files, she read Marcus's words from his first days as a prisoner. He had screamed and fought and demanded to know why the Kethvar had killed his species. But as the years went by, his words changed. He started asking questions instead of making demands. He talked about ideas that the Kethver files called dangerous human concepts. Yira read these concepts and felt something wake up inside her mind. Humans believed that all thinking beings had the right to make their own choices. They believed that no one had the right to own another person. They believed that those who ruled should serve the people, not the other way around. These ideas were like fire in Yira's thoughts. She had never heard such things before. The Veltari had always been slaves or servants to stronger species. She had thought this was just the way things were. But Marcus Chun's words made her ask a new question. Why? Why should the strong rule the weak? Why should some beings live in luxury while others died in mines? Why should anyone accept being a slave? Yira started sharing these questions with other Veltari through the quantum crystals. At first, her people were scared. Asking such questions was dangerous, but slowly other voices joined her. Veltari on mining worlds started whispering about human ideas in the dark tunnels where the Kethvar could not hear them. The network grew. Yira learned that the Medani had their own way of sharing secret messages. They could make their skin glow in patterns that looked like decoration to the Kethvar, but carried meaning to other Medani. A Medani worker named Blue Wave started teaching human ideas to his people through these light patterns. The Silvani were harder to reach because the Kethver watched them closely, but they had their own secret. When Silvani ships docked at the same stations, they released spores that carried memories from one plant person to another. A young Silvani named Grovesinger used these spores to spread human stories across the galaxy. Soon, beings on hundreds of worlds were learning about the species the Kethvar had killed. They learned about human courage and human kindness and human stubbornness. They learned that, long ago, other species had been free to make their own choices. Most importantly, they learned that one human was still alive. The knowledge that Marcus Chun existed changed everything. For 300 years, the enslaved species had been told that resistance was hopeless. The Kethver were too strong. Fighting back would only bring punishment. It was better to accept their fate and try to stay alive. But if a human could survive 300 years as a prisoner and still refuse to give up, maybe hope was not dead after all. Yira found herself thinking about Marcus Chun more and more. She read every file about him, watched every recording the Kethvar had made. She saw an old human who had lost everything but still made marks on his wall to count the days. Still asked questions that made his captors uncomfortable. Still believed that freedom was possible. One day, Yira made a decision that would change. The galaxy. She was working late in the research center reading files about human history, when she found something incredible. A recording of Marcus Chon from just last week. In the recording, he was talking to Commander Zixtal about the right of all beings to choose their own path. Yira connected to the quantum crystal network and sent Marcus's words across the galaxy. She sent them to her brother on Veltar Prime. She sent them to Blue Wave in the ocean processing centers. She sent them to Grove Singer in the forest work camps. The last human's voice spread from world to world, carrying a message that set minds on fire. You are not property. You deserve to choose your own path. You deserve to be free. Within days, the secret networks were buzzing with new energy. Veltari miners who had worked without hope for centuries started asking why they had to die in the darkness for Kethver profits. Merdani factory workers who had never questioned orders started wondering why they could not return to their ocean homes. Silvani's servants who had accepted their fate started remembering the songs of their free ancestors. The Kethvar noticed the change. Productivity dropped on mining worlds. Factory workers made small mistakes that slowed production. Servants took longer to complete their tasks. But the Kethvar did not understand what was happening. They thought their slaves were just being lazy. They had no idea that a revolution was growing in the darkness, fed by the words of a human they thought was safely locked away. Yara smiled as she sent another message through the quantum crystal network. Tomorrow, she would find more recordings of Marcus Chun. She would share more human ideas. She would help her people remember that they had once been free and could be free again. The Kethver had kept the last human alive to study him. They thought they were learning about human weakness. Instead, they had given the galaxy its greatest. Teacher.change was coming, and it would start with a simple human idea. Everyone deserves to be free. The explosion in Mine Shaft 7 shook the ground for miles around. Kix felt the vibration through his feet as he worked in the tunnels far below. Rock dust fell from the ceiling, and the lights went out for 3 long seconds before the emergency. Power came on through the quantum crystal network. Kix felt the fear and pain of his fellow workers. 23 Veltari were trapped in the collapsed tunnel. The mining equipment had broken down again, but the Kethver overseers had forced the workers to keep digging anyway. Now good people were buried under tons of rock, and their time was running out. Kix dropped his tools and ran toward Shaft 7 with dozens of other Veltari workers. They could dig their people out if they worked together. They had saved trapped miners before. But when they reached the shaft entrance, Overseer Krexenol blocked their way. The Kethver overseer was twice as tall as any Veltari, with crystal skin that glowed red when he was angry. Right now, his skin was burning bright like a flame. Get back to work, Krexenol ordered. His voice was like breaking glass. Shaft 7 is closed. But our people are trapped, Kix said. We can save them. They are already dead. Mining will continue in other shafts. An older Veltari named Vex stepped forward. She had worked in the mines longer than anyone. We can hear them calling for help. They are not dead. Krexenol's skin flared brighter. They will be dead soon. It would cost too much to dig them out. We have new workers coming from the prison ships tomorrow. Get back to work or join the dead. One's in the tunnel. Kix felt something break inside his chest. For 60 years, he had worked in these mines. He had watched friends die from cave-ins, poisonous gas, and exhaustion. He had told himself that this was just how life was for the Veltari. The strong ruled the weak. The Kethver owned everything, including Veltari Labs, but his sister Yira had been sending him human words through the quantum crystals. Words about dignity and choice and the right to say no to those who would treat thinking beings like tools. For weeks, these ideas had been growing in his mind like seeds in dark soil. Now, as he listened to his friends crying for help from the collapsed tunnel, the seeds bloomed into fire. No, Kix said. Crexnell leaned down until his crystal face was close to Kix's. What did you say? I said no. We will not go back to work while our people are dying. Other Veltari workers moved to stand beside Kix, their forearms crossed in a traditional sign of refusal that they had not used in 300 years. Crexnell pulled out his shock weapon. I will kill all of you. Then kill us, said Dex. But we will not abandon our friends. More Veltari came out of the tunnels. Soon, 300 workers stood together in front of Shaft 7. They had made their choice. They would save their trapped friends, or die trying. Crexnell looked at the crowd of defiant workers and realized he could not kill them all. The mines needed workers. But he could not let them disobey orders either. He called for backup within. An hour, 50 Kethvar soldiers surrounded the Veltari workers. They had weapons that could turn living beings to ash. But the Veltari did not move. They started to dig. Using their forearms and natural strength, the Veltari began clearing the rocks from Shaft 7. They worked faster than any machine, driven by love for their trapped friends and by something new, the human idea that some things were worth dying for. Kix pulled out his quantum crystal and sent a message to his sister. It has started, Yura. We are fighting back. Yura received her brother's message in the research center on the Kethvar capital world. She felt pride and terror mixed together in her hearts. She knew what would happen next. The Kethvar would not let this rebellion go unpunished. They would make an example of Veltar Prime to scare other worlds into obedience. But Yura also knew that the spark had been lit. The galaxy would see Veltari workers choosing death over slavery. They would see ordinary people standing up to the mighty Kethvar Empire. The image would spread through the secret networks faster than the Kethvar could stop it. Yura made a decision that would doom her. And save the galaxy. She accessed the most secret Kethvar files and found what she was looking for. Recent recordings of Marcus Chun. In the newest files, the last human was talking about courage and sacrifice and the duty of free beings to help each other. His words were calm but full of power. Yura connected to every quantum crystal network she could reach. She sent Marcus's voice to Veltari workers on 17 worlds. She sent his words to Merdani in the ocean factories. Through contacts she had made in the underground network, she got his message to Silvani in the forest camps. Marcus Chun's voice spread across the galaxy like light from a star. Freedom is not something you can give to someone or take away from someone. Freedom is something you claim for yourself. When you see others in chains, you have a choice. You can look away and stay safe, or you can risk everything to break those chains. The choice you make shows what kind of being you really are. The effect was immediate and unstoppable. On Medani Ocean World Beta 7, factory workers, led by Blue Wave, stopped their machines and demanded to return to their home seas. When Kethvar guards tried to force them back to work, the Madani began singing ancient songs that made the ocean itself rise up against the factories. On Silvani, Forest World Gamma 12, servants led by Grove Singer refused to cut down any more sacred trees. They planted themselves in the soil around the ancient forests and would not move, even when threatened with death. On 17 mining worlds, Veltari workers put down their tools and began digging out their trapped friends. Instead of digging crystals for their masters, the rebellions were not coordinated or planned. They happened because beings across the galaxy heard Marcus Chun's words and remembered something they had forgotten. They had the right to say no. The Kethvar responded with violence. They sent warships to the rebel worlds. They threatened to destroy entire planets if the slaves did not return to work. But something had changed. The fear that had kept the galaxy in chains for 300 years was breaking. On Veltar Prime, Kix and his fellow workers pulled 21 living Veltari from the collapsed mine shaft. 2 had died, but 21 lived because their friends had chosen to fight for them instead of accepting their fate. As Kethvar soldiers surrounded the miners with weapons drawn, Kix thought about his sister's messages. He thought about the human who had counted days on a wall for 300 years without giving up hope. He thought about the idea that had set the galaxy on fire. All thinking beings deserve to be free. Kix looked up at the Kethvar soldiers and smiled. "You can kill us," he said, "but you cannot kill the idea. Everyone deserves to choose." On worlds across the galaxy, millions of enslaved beings were saying the same words. The revolution had begun, and it carried the voice of the last human to every corner of the Kethvar Empire. In his white room on the capital world, Marcus Chun felt the change in the air. He did not know what was happening, but he could see it in Commander Zixtal's behavior. The alien came to visit him every day now, asking more and more desperate questions about human nature and human ideas. Marcus smiled and made another mark on the wall. 312 years, 8 months, and 3 days. Tomorrow, he would ask Zixtal about the reports of problems on the mining worlds. He would plant more seeds of doubt in the alien's crystal mind. The last human was still fighting, and now he was not fighting alone. High Emperor Vashtok stood before the great crystal screen that showed the Kethva Empire. Red dots marked 47 worlds where rebellions burned like fires. The screen had never shown so much red before. How did this happen? The Emperor asked. His voice made the crystal walls shake with anger. General Morthex, leader of all Kethvar military forces, kept his head low. The slaves are sharing illegal ideas through hidden networks. They believe they have the right to refuse orders. Impossible. We have ruled them for 300 years. They know their place. They did, my Emperor. Until they started hearing human words. Emperor Vashtok turned from the screen. His crystal body was larger than any other Kethvar, and light moved through it like storm clouds. Human words? All humans are dead. Not all, my Emperor. General Morthex's voice was very quiet. Commander Zixtal kept one alive for study. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then his body blazed with light so bright that the general had to look away. Bring me this human now. Marcus Chun was reading a book about Earth history when the soldiers came for him. He had read the same book thousands of times, but it helped him remember his home world and his people. When he heard the door open, he expected to see Commander Zixtal. Instead, 6 Kethvar soldiers entered his white room. Marcus Chun, said the soldier in front. You will come with us. Marcus closed his book and smiled. Let me guess. Your emperor wants to meet the last monster. The soldiers did not answer. They surrounded Marcus and walked him through halls he had never seen before. The walls were made of black crystal that seemed to eat light instead of reflecting it. Marcus realized he was being taken to the dark heart of the Kethvar Empire. The throne room was vast and empty, except for one huge crystal chair where Emperor Vashtok waited. The Emperor was 3 times taller than Commander Zixtal, and light moved through his body like liquid fire. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. So, the last human. Marcus looked up at the giant crystal being and felt no fear. After 300 years of captivity, there was nothing left for him to lose. So, the Emperor who rules through fear. I rule through strength. The weak serve the strong. This is the natural order. Natural for who? You? Emperor Vashtok leaned forward on his crystal throne. Your species is dead because you refuse to accept this truth. You filled the galaxy with dangerous ideas about freedom and choice. You made the weak so they could challenge the strong. I call that teaching them to be brave. I call it a disease that almost destroyed galactic peace. The Emperor's light grew brighter, but we cut out the infection. We killed every human in the galaxy. Except you. Marcus nodded. Yes, Zixtal told me about the Great Hunt. 50 years of murdering. Families and children. You must be very proud. I am proud that we saved the galaxy from chaos. Without human ideas poisoning their minds, the other species accepted their proper place. For 300 years, there has been perfect order. Perfect for you. Hell for everyone else. The Emperor stood up from his throne. He was so tall that his crystal head almost touched the ceiling. Look around you, human. I rule 1,000 worlds. Billions of beings serve my empire. Your species is extinct. Your ideas died with you. What do you have to be proud of? Marcus smiled. Ask your general about the red dots on his map. Emperor Vashtak turned to General Morthex, who stepped forward reluctantly. My emperor, there have been some problems on the outer worlds. Nothing we cannot handle. What kind of problems? Workers have stopped following orders. They claim they have the right to make choices. They say they learned this from human teachings. The Emperor's light flared like an angry star. Human teachings? This human has been locked in a room for 300 years. Yes, my emperor. But Commander Zixtal has been recording his words. Somehow, those recordings have spread to the slave. Neck works. Marcus laughed, and the sound echoed through the vast throne room. You thought you were studying me, but I was teaching you. Every question Zixtal asked, every answer I gave, every conversation we had, I knew someone was listening. Emperor. Vashtak looked down at Marcus with something like fear in his crystal face. You planned this. I hoped for this. For 300 years, I planted seeds in every conversation. I made Zixtal think about right and wrong. I made him question whether the strong have the right to enslave the weak. And apparently, he shared those questions with others. Your words cannot change anything. I have armies. I have weapons that can destroy entire planets. And I have something you cannot fight with armies or weapons. Marcus walked closer to the Emperor's throne. I have an idea whose time has come. The throne room doors opened, and Commander Zixtal entered. The alien looked different than Marcus had ever seen him. His crystal body was dim, and he moved slowly, like someone carrying a great weight. My Emperor, Zixtal said, I have come to report on the situation. Report quickly, and we will solve this problem permanently. Zixtal looked at Marcus then. Back at the Emperor. The rebellions are spreading faster than we can stop them. Every world we attack, 2 more join the uprising. The slaves are no longer afraid of us. Then we will give them something to fear. Prepare the death ships. We will destroy 10 rebel worlds as an example to the others. My Emperor, Zixtal said quietly, I do not think that will work. Emperor Vashtak's light blazed with fury. You question my orders? I question whether destroying worlds will stop an idea. Zixtal turned to Marcus. For 300 years, I have studied this human. I have tried to understand what makes his species so dangerous. Today, I finally know. Tell me, humans do not fear death more than they fear slavery. They would rather die free than live in chains. And they taught this courage to other species. Zixtal's voice grew stronger. We cannot kill an idea by killing the people who believe in it. We can only prove that the idea is right. Emperor Vashtak stared at his most trusted commander. You have been infected by human poison. I have been educated by human wisdom. The Emperor raised his hand, and energy crackled between his crystal fingers. Then you will die with the human. But before the Emperor could strike, alarms began ringing throughout the palace. General Morthex pressed his hand to his communication. Device then looked up with shock on his crystal face. My Emperor, the rebels have reached the capital world. They are attacking the outer defenses. Impossible. The capital world is the most protected in the galaxy. Not from the inside, my Emperor. Half of our own workers have joined the rebellion. The palace staff, the factory workers, even some of our soldiers. They are all saying the same thing, which is, everyone deserves to be free. Through the crystal walls, Marcus could hear the sound of distant explosions and the voices of many beings chanting together. The words were in different languages, but he understood them all. They were singing songs of freedom that had been forbidden for 300 years. Emperor Vashtak looked around his throne room and realized that his perfect order was falling apart. The slaves who had served him without question for centuries were remembering that they had once been free. The soldiers who had enforced his will were laying down their weapons and walking away. "This is your fault," the Emperor said to Marcus. "Your words did this." Marcus nodded. "My words. And the words of every being who decided that freedom was worth fighting for. I will execute you in front of the entire galaxy. When they see their human teacher die, they will remember their fear. Go ahead. Kill me in front of everyone. Let them see what you do to those who speak of freedom and choice and dignity. Let them see the monster you really are." Emperor Vashtak's crystal face twisted with rage. "I am not the monster. You are. You destroyed the peace of the galaxy. I reminded the galaxy what peace really means. Not the silence of the oppressed, but the harmony of the free." The Emperor pointed at Commander Zixtal. "Prepare the execution chamber. We broadcast this human's death to every world in the Empire. Today, the monster dies, and order returns." But Zixtal did not move. The alien looked at Marcus with something. That might have been respect. "No, my Emperor. I will not help you murder the teacher of freedom. Then you die with him." As the Emperor raised his hand to strike down both Marcus and Zixtal, the throne room doors exploded inward. Dr. Yura burst through the smoke and dust, followed by hundreds of rebels from dozens of different species. Veltari miners, Medani factory workers, Silvani servants, and even some Kethver soldiers who had chosen freedom over fear. "Nobody dies today," Yura said, her forearms holding weapons that glowed with captured starlight. "Except maybe tyranny." Marcus looked at the diverse group of beings who had come to save him and felt something he had not felt in 300 years. Hope. The battle for the Crystal Palace lasted 3 days. Marcus watched from the high tower where Dr. Yura had taken him to keep him safe. Below, the capital city burned with the fires of revolution. But it was not the angry fire of destruction. It was the clean fire of change. Beings who had been slaves for 300 years walked together through the streets. Veltari miners helped wounded Medani workers. Silvani servants shared food with Kethver soldiers who had thrown down their weapons. Even some of the ruling Kethver had joined the rebels, their crystal bodies dim with shame for what their empire had done. "It is beautiful," Marcus said to Yura as they watched the sun set over the changing world. "It is also dangerous," Yura replied. Her 4 hands were busy working on communication devices, trying to coordinate the rebellion across dozens of star systems. "Emperor Vashtak still controls the death ships. If we cannot stop him, he will destroy entire worlds to keep his power." Marcus was quiet for a moment. He was old now, even by human standards. 300 years of captivity had not broken his spirit, but they had worn down his body. He could feel death approaching like an old friend. "Where is Commander Zixtal?" he asked. "Fighting with the rebels in the lower city. He says he has 300 years of guilt to make up for." Marcus smiled. "Good. I want to talk to the Emperor." Yura looked at him with her large black eyes. "Marcus, that is too dangerous. Vashtak wants to kill you more than anything else in the galaxy." "I know. That is why I need to talk to him." 2 hours later, Marcus stood in the ruins of the Crystal Throne. Room, the great chair where Emperor Vastok had ruled, was cracked and broken. The Emperor himself sat in the wreckage, his crystal body dim and flickering like a dying star. "So," Vastok said when he saw Marcus, "the monster comes to gloat over his victory." Marcus walked carefully across the broken crystal floor. His legs were weak, but his voice was strong. "I came to talk." "Talk? Your rebels have destroyed my empire. My people turn against me. My perfect order is chaos. What is left to discuss?" "The future." Vastok laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "I have no future. When your rebels find me, they will kill me for the crimes I have committed. Maybe you can help build something better." The Emperor looked up at Marcus with surprise. "You would trust me? After everything I have done?" "I do not trust you. But I believe people can change." Marcus sat down on a piece of broken crystal, ignoring the pain in his old bones. "For 300 years, I have been teaching that all beings deserve the chance to choose their own path. That includes you. What choice do I have? I am the tyrant who enslaved the galaxy. You can be the leader who helped free it." Vastok was quiet for a long time. Outside, they could hear the sounds of the changing city, voices singing songs of freedom, people working together to heal the damage of centuries, hope being born from the ashes of despair. "How?" the Emperor asked finally. "Help us build a new government, one where all species have a voice, where the strong protect the weak instead of ruling them, where freedom is not a gift that can be taken away, but a right that belongs to everyone. The other rebels will never accept me. They will if I ask them to." Marcus looked at the broken Emperor with eyes that had seen 300 years of suffering and still held compassion. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Vastok. Even tyrants who want to change." 3 months later, representatives from 400 worlds gathered on the neutral planet of New Haven. They came to write the laws for a new galactic government. The Veltari sent Dr. Yira. The Merdani sent Blue Wave. The Silvani sent Grove Singer. Even the Kethvar sent delegates, led by former Emperor Vashtok, who now called himself Citizen Vasht-OK. Marcus Chon sat in the front row of the great assembly hall, his old body wrapped in blankets, but his mind still sharp. He watched beings who had been enemies for centuries work together to create something new. It was not easy. There were arguments and disagreements and moments when the whole project seemed ready to fall apart. But every time the delegates started to give up, someone would remember the human words that had started the revolution. Everyone deserves to be free. Everyone deserves to choose their own path. The new government would not be perfect. No government ever was. But it would be built on principles that Marcus had kept alive for 300 years in a white room on a crystal world. Principles that all thinking beings were equal, that leaders should serve the people, not rule them, that freedom was worth any price. On the last day of the assembly, Marcus stood up to speak. His voice was weak, but the hall was so quiet that everyone could hear him. "My friends," he began, and the word friends made many delegates smile, because no one had called them that in centuries. "You have done something amazing here. You have chosen to build a future based on hope instead of fear, based on cooperation instead of conquest, based on the crazy human idea that everyone deserves to be free." He paused to catch his breath, and Yira moved to help him, but he waved her away with a gentle smile. "I will not live to see this new galaxy you are creating. I am old, and I am tired, and I have been fighting for freedom for 313 years. But I am not sad, because I know that the idea will live on. You will teach it to your children, and they will teach it to theirs, and someday the galaxy will forget what it was like to live in chains. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. That night, as the delegates celebrated their success, he closed. His eyes for the last time got Dr. Yura, found him the next morning, sitting peacefully in the chair where he had watched the birth of a free galaxy. In his hand was a small piece of crystal with marks scratched on it. The final count, 300. And 13 years, 7 months, and 2 days of refusing to give up hope. The funeral of Marcus Chon was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as representatives from hundreds of species carried his simple coffin to its resting place. They had carved words into the stone above his grave in every language spoken among the stars. Here lies Marcus Chon, the last. Human. He taught the galaxy that freedom is not something you can give to someone or take away from someone. Freedom is something you claim for yourself and defend for everyone. Years passed. The new galactic government grew stronger. Former slaves became leaders. Former enemies became friends. Children were born who had never known what it was like to live in fear of their rulers. But the story of the last human was told on every world. How he had counted days on a wall for 300 years and never stopped believing that freedom was possible. How his words had traveled through secret networks and awakened the courage that slept in the hearts of enslaved beings. How he had chosen forgiveness over revenge and shown that even tyrants could change. Commander Zixtal, now an old alien who spent his time teaching young beings about the importance of asking questions, would end every class the same way. The humans are gone, he would say. But the idea they died for lives on. Every time you choose kindness over cruelty, every time you stand up for someone who cannot stand up for themselves, every time you refuse to accept that injustice is just the way things are, you keep the human spirit alive. Remember Marcus Chon. Remember that one person who refuses to give up can change the entire galaxy. Remember that freedom is not a gift from the powerful to the weak. It is a right that belongs to everyone, everywhere, always. In the end, the aliens had been right to fear the monster they kept in a cage. But the monster was not Marcus Chon. The monster was the idea he carried. The dangerous, beautiful, unstoppable idea that all thinking beings deserve to be free. That idea had escaped its cage and set the galaxy on fire. And from those fires, a better world was born.